podcast, go, go, go. Wax's podcast, go, go, go. Go, go, go. Go, 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 go. Yes, what's up, y'all? This is Wax coming to you live. Not really live, as I used to say in the first couple podcasts. It's not really live. It's being recorded right now. So as I speak, it's kind of live because I'm just saying whatever the fuck comes off the top of my dome here. And the reason that I started the podcast off with such a burst of cheerleader type of rhetoric there was one task I'm doing right now. This is going to fuck something up by me telling you this. It's going to fuck up the secrecy of this task, but let me start by explaining to you that a music video I did last year called Feels Good. If you were to watch that music video, Feels Good, Wax featuring Anderson .Paak, produced by EOM. If you were to watch that video on YouTube, the music video for that song, there's many times in that video, not many times, but sometimes, where I use some footage from like family home movie footage from my family from back in the day. And in order to make that happen, my mother was nice enough. My mom's one of the nicest people. She's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, and she loves to help me. She loves doing things to help me. And one of the things she did to help me was she packed up all these old tapes. I believe they're 8mm tapes. Yeah, they're either 8mm or 9mm, one of the two, but they're tapes from an old school type of video camera. They're not VHS tapes, they're smaller. They're like the same size as old cassette tapes, but in height and in length and height, but not in width. They're wider than that. They're the same size as like a box of playing cards, but if the playing cards had like maybe 150% of the actual amount of cards. So, you know, if there was 78 cards in every deck, then a box of playing cards would be approximately the same size as one of these old 8mm tapes. Let's put it that way. Hold on. And we had a bunch of those. It was cool. It was cool. She sent me a box of them, and in order for me to get the footage from these tapes onto some kind of digital format, you know, I did research out here in Hollywood. There's tons of places out here. Where not tons, but a lot of places out here, because this is kind of like the movie industry. You never know what kind of footage people are digging up, where you can just find random film reels, old beta tapes, VHS tapes, whatever, you name it, and there's places that digitize the footage. That's like a business out here. And I looked into how much it would be to digitize all this footage to make my music video, and I realized that it's really expensive to do if you get somebody to do it, especially considering I had like a pretty big box full of tapes, and you know, you do the math for a music video, especially for that music video, what I needed. I probably only needed, 30 seconds, if that, worth of footage. But the task was going through these hours and hours and hours of footage and deciding which footage, finding like the needles in the haystack to use for the video. Because, a lot of the stuff that's on these videos is not actually usable for a music video. Like, it was supposed to be like, clips of me as a kid kind of starting to be into music and kind of like starting to do things that actually have to do with my musical career. Whereas a vast majority of the home footage that we have doesn't have anything to do with that. But everything that I've said so far has just been explained to you that I have this box of tapes. And after figuring out that it was too expensive, I mean, I'm still sidetracking, really. Just let me stop even mentioning the fact that I'm sidetracking. Let me just keep talking about this story. I have this box of tapes, and in order to get the footage off the tape and get them into some kind of digital format, I found out through research that probably the best thing for me to do would just be to kind of do it myself and go through the footage here. And the best way to do that was to find something that played the tapes and find something to record them onto a digital format. And the most realistic way to do it was to find a camera, an old school camera, and a DVD burner, both technologies that at one point were awesome and new, and only the richest people in the land could even afford think about these fucking items, much less own them. And what did I do? I bought both of them at the same time for like $100 from some weirdo on Craigslist. So that goes to show you how, God, that dude was really a weirdo too. EOM was with me. He was such a weirdo on the phone that I was like, you know what? I'm not going to even go down to this dude's house by myself. He lived in some town, like, it wasn't a rough town, but just it was like a town I'd never heard of, you know, somewhere in the South Bay area of LA. And the dude on the phone just like wouldn't stop fucking talking. So I was like, man, I'm going to bring a friend with me just in case this dude tries to rape me or something. So so I brought EOM with me as my rape protector. And I ended up buying this DVD burner and you know, and the camera that's the original kind of camera that, you know, you record thing on these tapes, because you can't really get like a VCR that plays the tapes. The things that people would play the tape on was just the camera itself. You just hook the camera right up to your TV. So in order to get the footage for the music video, I watched all the footage, and when I found little clips that I like, I'd record them onto a DVD and take that DVD and use that to get the footage onto a computer. So my mom had asked me, you know, right around Christmas time, maybe something like that. You know, it's almost it's like summer now. It's just becoming summer. And around Christmas time or something, right when I was on, I think I was on tour or something. I don't even know what happened. But my mom was like, you know what you could do for me is you could give me that footage in a digital manner. Basically, she wanted to see if she could get DVDs of all the footage that she gave me. And that's what I'm going through now. One of the tasks that I'm doing right now, since my mom listens to this podcast, usually it's now not a surprise, because I'm going back there. I'm going to visit with my mom and dad next week, and I was going to surprise them by. I know my mom would be surprised because I usually don't actually do things that are nice and caring and loving for them. You know, they would assume that I would just forget to do it, but I'm going to come down there with a stack of DVDs. I mean, there's probably 25 of these tapes, and it's not like, you know, nowadays where people just kind of hit a button and things record. You got to sit through it and just let it record in real time. Hold on one second. So we're probably talking about somewhere in the area of 50 hours worth of footage, something like that, probably, that I'm going to end up giving to them. And the amount, first of all, the amount of footage on this that's not entertaining to watch is ridiculous. My dad was probably the worst family cameraman of all time, and it was only a close second to he was a close second. He was actually a distant second to if he ever gave my mom the camera, because she was even worse. And then if he gave it to me and my brother and my sister, we'd all be bad. So our family vacation footage wasn't the best. Like, we had a family vacation. We're from Maryland, and one time, I guess I was probably about 10 or 11, and we drove to Cooperstown, New York. And the reason we drove to Cooperstown, New York is, for those of you that don't know, Cooperstown, New York is the home of the Baseball Hall of Fame. So, you know, we're going to go look at the Baseball Hall of Fame. I had baseball cards. I was into baseball. We went to games. I had the stats, all that stuff. I was never a good player of baseball, but, you know, I guess when I was 10 or 11, definitely good enough to want to go and take a family vacation to see the Hall of Fame of baseball. So we went up there, and first of all, there's at least an hour's worth of footage of us where I think we must have just gotten this video camera at the time, because my dad just holds the video camera out the window of the car when we're on the highway, and he just does that for like an hour, like as if it's like, oh look, here's the side of the highway. You know, every once in a while he like looks in the car and like points the camera to like us sleeping in the back, and then might say what's up to my mom driving, and then just points it right back out the window. And he never hits stop. He just records for like an hour. Then we get up to Cooperstown, and when we go into the Hall of Fame, my dad actually like brings the camera in there, and like, you know, there's parts of the Hall of Fame where, if you can picture like a plaque, like when you go into a museum and there's a plaque with somebody, a legendary face, you know what I mean? Like, it might not even be a real photo. It might just be like an engraving. It looks almost like an award, like a trophy, like a merit plaque, like, you know, as if you got a Lifetime Achievement Award for baseball, and they'll have your face like engraved in some kind of gold, and then they'll have your story, which is like a short paragraph that's that's on a placard underneath the picture of you, which is all on some piece of wood that just looks like one big plaque. So if you were to look at it and say like Ty Cobb played for the blah 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 in 1907. I think he played for the Detroit Tigers in 1907. He was one of the leading players at that time with a batting average of blah 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 and blah blah blah. He died in 1946 of colon cancer. Like, that's about how long it would be. You know, I don't know if he died of colon cancer. I have no idea how Ty Cobb died. But I think he was the one that had the really valuable playing card. But anyway, what my dad would do is if you saw a placard like that, which there was a lot of them, he would hold the family home video camera on that and like give it enough time so you could read the whole thing. And then he'd slowly move the video camera onto another one. And then he'd leave it on there, give you enough time so you can read the whole thing. As if sometime in the distant future, you know, the people from the Cooperstown Museum were going to be like, you know what, let's use the Jones family footage for our promotional DVD that we're going to put out. In case anybody wants to just see this, you know, for the virtual reality tour, the virtual tour of our establishment here. Let's use the Jones family footage. Or if any of our relatives, when my dad shows them the footage on the day after Christmas or whatever, whenever we're together as a family and my dad shows the family home movies, like that's what they want to see. They want to actually see and read every single player in the Hall of Fame. I don't know. You know, maybe I'm being hard on my dad's footage, but it was kind of funny to me looking at it. And that's only there, but you know, if you watch it, you'll see like it's really weird to watch that old footage. Like, it's freaky, you know. It's, you know, you see people that aren't alive anymore in the footage, but even more so than that, it's just, to me, it's just weird to see these recorded days from a long time ago that it just looks it's like these things happen, but it's hard to tell you how it's like an emotional thing when you watch it. It's just like, it's almost like you're watching ghosts or something. And I'm not just talking about because some people aren't alive anymore. I'm talking about just in general, you know, even watching yourself as a kid or watching your parents, or it's just weird seeing these old times that now seem so far away that you almost don't remember them. And there's like the little things are weird, like you know, the footage when my dad's shooting in the car and you hear the radio guy, you know, and like even that sounds older, and like cars look a little older and people's clothing looks a little older. It's just kind of freaky to watch. But I said all of that to tell you that the last thing that I was digitizing, this was actually probably the worst thing that he shot, was me and my brother, I guess when we were in middle school, were on the school soccer team. And, you know, we were playing a game. And my dad sat on the sideline in one area and filmed the entire middle school soccer game. And maybe that doesn't even sound as bad as it is, but it's you know, it's very far from watching the fucking World Cup on television. Let's put it that way. It's very much less exciting than that, especially considering every few minutes whoever's taping, and I think it was my dad and my sister were kind of trading. And every 5 minutes, somebody kind of gives up for a couple seconds. Then just like they switch hands and it gets shaky, and they're not even really on the ball, following the ball. And, you know, it's a solid hour and a half, maybe an hour of just an entire soccer game. But you know, now my parents are going to have that digitized. I actually straight fast forwarded some of it because I was like, there's no way they're going to watch this. But what I did watch a tiny bit of, I mean, I watched a lot of the game, actually. I started watching after a while when the angles were right. But I couldn't even tell, like, you know, it's old school footage, so I couldn't even tell who the fuck I was on the field. But the most interesting part, and the part that kind of made me laugh, was the cheerleaders. First of all, it's funny in general that a middle school soccer team has full-blown cheerleaders that do cheers, and at halftime they go out and do straight up cheers. But what made me laugh about it is if you're from Maryland, especially either Baltimore or maybe Southern, really anywhere in fucking Maryland, or really even if you're from the Philadelphia area, because they have the same shit going on with their O's. If you ever seen Bam Margera talk, he's a good example. But people from Maryland, I've lost it a little bit. But if you meet someone that's really born and raised in Southern Maryland, or really born and raised in a suburb of Philadelphia or Baltimore, when they say things, they say home. And I'm gonna go down the road, go home. And I talked like that a lot more when I was a kid. And when I see myself as a kid on the tape, I'm actually shocked by how much of a Maryland accent I had. But it was just so fucking funny. There's like probably 15 middle school girls, and they're doing a cheer, and they just they're like, go, 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 go. Like, you can hear all their accents at the same time, and it just sounded funny as shit to me. So that's why I started off my podcast, episode 61, with a little bit of a throwback. Go Northern. That's the middle school I went to. Go fucking Northern. Go Northern. Go Northern. Go Northern. Bobcats. Go. Go Northern. Show the road team that the home team is boss. But yeah, so that's what's going on with my life. One thing that's going on with it, there's a million things that are actually going on with it. One thing that's going on with it is that I'm digitizing those tapes for my mom. I got a lot of it done, and by the time I get home, I will have a lot more, and I hopefully will have all of them digitized for you. So, Mom, if you're listening, I'm not slacking at least too hard on that. At the very least, even if I gave you the footage I already had, you'd have a solid amount. Not saying it's entertaining. You're not going to win any Oscars anytime soon for best screenplay about a trip to Cooperstown, New York. You're not going to be winning any Oscars soon. But what else is going on? I'm doing that. Big stories in my life. Big stories. I am making music. I know a lot of people have been hitting me up, and I fucking deserve it, because that's what I do for a living. I make music, and I'm lucky enough that I have fans, and I'm lucky enough that I have people that listen to my music and buy my music and buy tickets to see me perform, so I don't have to have a regular job. Look at me. I'm over here. I don't have to work. I go into establishments and I say, hello, can you help me? Can you fucking help me? They say, can I help you? I'm getting paid to be here to fucking help you. I don't want to be here. I want to be with my family. I want to be with my family right now. I don't want to be serving you. I went to the dentist this morning. I walk in there and there's somebody, can I help you? I'm the receptionist here at the dentist office. I don't necessarily want to be here, but I have to make a living for my family to be able to survive. Can I fucking help you? You entitled piece of shit that sits around all day and thinks of words that rhyme like an expert crossword puzzle player, you motherfucker. She didn't actually say that, but my point is, I'm not entitled to what I have. I'm not entitled to be able to live this life that I live. I gotta fucking do things. I gotta work. Hold up. I gotta make songs. If I'm gonna be a musician, I gotta make music. And what I've been doing recently is making a fucking lot of it. So for all the people out there who have been hitting me up like, yo, when's some new shit coming out? What are you doing? Why aren't you making any new shit? I got some new shit coming. I don't know when it's gonna come out. I don't know exactly how I'm gonna do this. I guess I'm working on an album. I guess that's probably the best way to put it. I'm working on some kind of album, and I got a bunch of shit I'm working on. It's sounding good. I'm feeling super inspired, and hopefully that. I don't know when it's going to come out because I'm right about to go on tour for the summer, so putting a little bit of a wrench into that plan. But hopefully the tour, since the tour is kind of a luxury tour, a more luxurious tour than I'm used to. Maybe I can use some of the free time to really write a lot of music. And when I say that it's a luxurious tour, I don't mean that the Warped Tour is a luxurious tour. I mean the way that we're doing the tour is on the next level of anything I've done before. This is what I mean. I've been doing this for a long time. I've toured. My old band used to tour, and we didn't fuck with hotels. We didn't make money. We were happy to just get free beer, and we would drink as much of it as we could. If the venue offered us free beer, they probably wouldn't even have us back the next time because we had 6 people in the band and 1 person selling merch, and we would drink as much as we possibly could because we probably weren't making any money, and then we'd pass out on some random fan's floor. And we didn't really even have fans, so that would even be a lucky thing. So who knew where we were going to sleep? Who knew where we were going to get there? We might take random people's cars. Some person might take a train. Then eventually we had a van that I actually bought. That, of course, right after I bought it, the band... No, I had it for a second while the band was together, but as soon as I got our website really big on the side of the van, the band broke up, of course. And, we never made any money. We toured. We slept on people's floors. Then, me and my brother, we did the low-budget Wax and Herbal Tea tour. We had my Sentra. We made a tiny, tiny bit of money, but not enough to really stay in hotels. We did a couple night, but it was just one of those tours where we were getting drunk too much. We didn't eat properly. We got sick the whole entire time. Usually sleep on the floors. Lost a bunch of money for the fucking tour. That's another thing about the earlier tours. Like, we weren't making money touring. We had to save money in order to tour. You spent money to try to be able to get your name out and all that shit. And is this fucking thing working? All right, sorry about that. But and then after I've been doing this for a long time. I've been touring for a long time, making music for a long time, and eventually, in the past couple years, I've got to the point where we can rent a big van and trailer and go out. I have a full band. Everybody in the band can stay in a hotel. If the first show is far away, I'll pay for people to fly out there, et cetera, et cetera. Still not making much money. I mean, in some cases, not making much at all. But I'm making a living through all this stuff. And but one thing I've never done is I've never had a tour bus. Never been on a bus. I don't even think I've ever been on a tour bus at all in my life. But this Warped Tour, me and the homie Watsky and our band that we're splitting, all mutual friends, everybody's mutual friends, and me and Watsky pretty much have the same band with the exception of he has a singer that joins him and I have EOM that joins me. But we're all going to be in a fucking bus. So what that means is that we all have a place to sleep. We all have a bunk on the bus. And overnight when the bus is driving, because we have an actual driver, none of us have to drive the bus, we can be asleep. And then during the day, the bus will pretty much be stationary usually during the day. Even if it's not, we're not like, even when we had the van, with the band as big as we had it, there's usually 3 people on each bench seat of the van. Maybe there's 2 on one, but usually you're sitting in a seat where, there's a dude next to, he's got his laptop, his fucking phone charger's hanging over and in between your leg, then somebody's elbow is hitting you on the other side, then your feet are kind of raised because there's 2 backpacks underneath you, it's not, I'm not complaining by any means, but I'm only pointing out that the next level up that we're about to be on is a much different type of thing. When you can get up, walk around, you can go sleep in your bunk if you want. You can sit on various different type of seats. In the back, there's practically like a theater. There's picture like a small booth, like a booth for a big booth for 2, a small booth for 4 in a restaurant. There's a seat or 2 that I think there might be 2 of those kind of booths. So you could sit there and put your laptop on the computer. And when you hear about people being recording and getting shit done on the road, it's usually because they have a bus like this. They're not usually in a shittier situation. And that's also an excuse for me not really doing that too much before. But yeah. So at least when it comes to writing, what I'm hoping to do is have most of the tracks and shit ready by the time I go on tour. And I can spend a lot of my off time, which I'll have a lot of. I'll have a lot of off time on the road. Y'all should check that out, man. Vans, if you just Google Vans Warped Tour dates, you can find out if I'm playing next to where you live. If you live in the United States, unfortunately, I will not make the Canada shows. Fucking sucks, but I'm not gonna be able to make. There's 2 shows in Canada, one in Toronto and one in Montreal, and I will not be at those shows. So hopefully you guys can make it to the U.S. shows. If you live in another country, hopefully I'll be there later. But, it's going to be a fun summer, and hopefully I'll get some of this work done. I'll be with EOM the whole time, so maybe me and him were talking about even just trying to, really knock out some shit while we're on the road, too. Because there's a lot of free time on this tour. It's not like most tours, you got a lot of time where you're sitting around. and there's room and there's a little bit more comfort, and you want to get stuff done. So maybe this tour I'll be able to get some shit done. But I am working on music, and hopefully I'll have some stuff out soon. Hopefully I'll have a fucking barrage of stuff out soon. And what else is going on in my life? Did I write anything down? Write down. I wrote down, I am making music. Maddie B in Baltimore, who emailed me, wanted me to tell a story from when I was in college, but I didn't think of a good one. And then I have, tire flat, one leg guy. Oh, this is an interesting story. I'll tell one more story before I get to questions and stuff. So last week I was in Los Angeles, and I was driving through Hollywood, and bam, my tire popped. My back passenger side tire was flat, and it was like popped flat. Like not like, I can drive somewhere flat. Like it was like, this really shouldn't be driven on. So I just pulled over to the side of the road. Like you could feel it going, caw-caw, caw-caw, caw-caw. You know, so I pulled over to the side of the road, and I got really, really lucky. There was an AutoZone like 3 blocks away from where I was, where my tire blew, right there on Venice and La Brea. So I guess that was Pico and really close to La Brea that the AutoZone was at. So if you've ever been to that AutoZone, know that I was there last week. And the reason I had to go to the AutoZone, you're thinking, because some of you guys are thinking, wait a second, why'd you have to go to the AutoZone? Shouldn't you have all the parts needed, all the accessories / equipment needed within your vehicle to change a tire? If not, you should, because that's the safe way to be a fucking, what do they call it? Motorist? There's another word for motorist that I wanted to use right there. Anyway, I didn't, for some reason, this is the first time I've had a flat tire. Like it was literally the first time that I've had to pull the little donut out from under my trunk in my Nissan Sentra. The first time with this car. I'm pretty sure it was, at least. I think the last time I had a flat tire was with my old car, which was also a Nissan Sentra, so I could be getting them confused. But the shit looked brand new. It looked like it had been sitting there, and it still had like the little foam over top of it. And I know myself, if I had removed that, I probably would have fucked it up or damaged it somehow. So it looked like it had never been removed, but for some reason, and I looked everywhere. I looked all over the trunk, all over the car. I even looked in the user's manual to see where it was supposed to be, and the place where it was supposed to be, it wasn't. I was missing that, like the wrench, like the lug wrench that you use for, you have to use it to fucking get the tires off, to get the fucking, whatever the fuck they're called. I'm not real good with like cars and shit like that, but to get the, to get the fucking lug nuts off of the tire so you can take the old tire off and put the spare tire on. To get that off, you need this wrench. But even just as importantly as that, to jack your car up to get the tire off, the wrench actually always doubles as a part where you fucking crank the jack up to jack your car up. And for whatever reason, that piece was missing from my car. So luckily enough, I was able to go to AutoZone and get that piece. So it wasn't a tragedy. And walked over to AutoZone, right there, La Brea and Venice. And I walked in. I got the piece I needed. I actually almost got some other dumb shit, but I got I got the thing that I needed. And when I got to the cash register, I got to the cash register, and then the guy behind the cash register couldn't use the cash register he was at. Picture you're looking at the cash register, right? And there's and some of you have been to AutoZone, so you can picture it. There's a long row. It's like being at a bar. If you look to your left, it's just a long counter that goes left and right. And if you were looking at it, like there's one line here. It's a one long line, but when you get to the front of it, just like you would at the post office, it's like a bar, but there's different stations for cashiers. So when I got to the front, there was no line at all. I just walked right to where the guy was. I walked right where. This is like such a stupid part of the story to even get stuck on. I walked up to the counter. There was nobody there. The guy comes out, and I put my thing on the counter, And he's like, oh, no, we can't use this register. So we walk over to the other register. And the problem with the other register was there was a fucking guy leaning on the bar / table / counter. He was leaning on the counter right where that station was. And this guy had one leg. He had one leg, and he had those kind of crutches that were like kind of like almost connected to your arm. You know, like they actually go up your arm, and there's like kind of like a loop that you put your arms through right about the elbow. And he had one fucking leg. You know, he was 2 crutches and 1 leg, and he was leaning. He was waiting for his friend to get whatever he had to get, and he was leaning on the fucking counter. And he was a big dude. He looked like he probably lost that leg in the war. He was probably pushing 60. Big dude. Looked like a dude that probably lost his leg in the war. That could be wrong. I don't know. But he was a pretty big dude, and he was definitely like making, like when he was sitting on it, he was making the counter creak. Like it was let's think about like a not too strong piece of wood if you put a lot of weight on it, that noise. And if he was made any movement, it would creak further. You know what I mean? And he was standing right there in front of the fucking the thing where you swipe your credit card. Like really, like you couldn't swipe your card because he was there. And when we went to this area, the guy behind the counter was like, "Look, buddy." He talked like that. He's like, "Look, buddy, you cannot stand there. You're gonna break it. You're gonna break it." And the guy fucking looked behind himself because he was facing the other way. He wasn't, picture it. His ass is on the counter. You know what I'm saying? So the guy fucking rolls up. He hits some buttons on the cashier and he goes, "Look, buddy, you're gonna break this. You cannot sit there. You're gonna break this." And the guy fucking turns around real slowly. He looked like if you ever seen Happy Gilmore, not as big as that dude, but remember the dude from Happy Gilmore that ended up with a fucking nail in his head? If that dude was black, if that dude was a black dude, this dude looked like him with one leg, but it's not quite as big as intimidating as him. But his face, the expression of his face and the grizzled nature of his face was like the black version of the guy from Happy Gilmore that had a nail in his head. And he turns around really slowly and he just shakes his head and he goes, "I got one leg, man." And I was just like, God damn. So that happened, and then he fucking rang up my little fucking lug nut wrench, and I didn't have any cash on me. I had to swipe my shit, and the guy goes, "Go ahead," like pointed towards the credit card thing that this dude was clearly covering up, and like he put the it almost was like in that second he put the ethical dilemma onto my shoulders, like he couldn't get the good guy to move. And, when he said he had one leg, I was in my head, I'm like, I cannot fucking argue with you there. I looked down and I said, absolutely you do. And in my fucking opinion, that kind of entitles you to take a little rest, take a load off on just about any counter you want, especially considering he was in there because he had a friend that was like in there buying some shit and he was just waiting for his friend. And he had one fucking leg, like you said. And it was my job now to fucking make the decision. And I looked at the fucking dude behind the counter and I said, "Yo, I'm not telling this guy to move." I said it just like that. And the dude kind of looked at me. The one leg dude kind of looked at me, and he didn't look at me like, "Oh, that's cool, man. I understand. At least I appreciate you like kind of thinking that way, He just looked at me and went like that and just fucking left. He like just got up off the counter. You could almost see the counter lift up when he got up, like as if the counter was had springs, had shocks on the bottom of it. When he got up, you could almost see it lift up, hear it creak. Maybe you could even hear the one-legged dude's body and crutches creak at the same time, and it just sounded like the fucking if the counter could say as if he had just given the fucking fat girl a piggyback ride. If he could say that, he would have, if he was a person. So the guy with one leg, like he walked out didn't really walk, but he walked like with his crutches and his one leg out of the store, and I swiped my card, and then I got my fucking lug nut wrench, walked my 3 blocks. And then another interesting thing even happened while I was changing my tire. I was changing my tire, and I was getting the shit off. I had already jacked up the car, and I'd just taken this flat tire off, and I was putting the donut on. And this other dude, another black dude, walked by, and this dude was kind of like, now I feel like I got to make movie references for all the black dudes I meet during this flat tire experience. But this dude was he had a lot of pep in his step, you know? He looked like a professional, like a business professional, like that was kind of headed to work. It was like a Wednesday at noon or something. So like most people it was like working hours, and he had a lot of pep in his step. Unfortunately, I can't think of a movie reference, especially because I already killed it with the Happy Gilmore one. But he had a lot of pep in his step, right? And I'm there, and he goes, the old donut, huh? Like, if you guys don't know, most of you do, but like a spare tire on a car, especially for people who don't speak English as their first language, a spare tire on a car in the United States is often referred to as a donut, because it's like just a small version of a tire that you only drive for a little while, or you're only supposed to drive it for a little while before you get a new tire. It's really, and they call it a donut. And the guy comes by and he goes, donuts, huh? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, man, I hate them motherfuckers. And I looked at him, I was like, yeah, man, this thing just ruined my day. And he stopped for a second, and he looks at me, and he kind of gets like real serious, kind of like he's about to say some real shit. And he goes, well, you know what, brother? You can start your day over whenever you want. And I fucking looked at him, because I was feeling, this spare tire incident, this flat tire incident had actually fucked my day up a little bit. Like, that's why I told him it ruined my day, because you know that feeling when you get a flat tire, and you're just like, fuck this. I don't feel like getting out of my car and changing a tire right now. Especially if you're me, and you're lazy by nature, and like I'm not really into cars. Like, I'm always worried I'm gonna fuck something up anyway. And this really did fuck up my day. I was on my way to somewhere actually, and I had to cancel some shit I was doing. And I told him that it ruined my day, and he looked at me and said, well, you know what, brother? You can start your day over whenever you want to. And I fucking looked at him, and I was like, man, thank you for saying that. And he was like, no problem. And he fucking walked away. So, interesting. It was an interesting experience. Interesting enough for me to write it down, and interesting enough for me to say it on Wax's podcast. But no, it was cool. It was cool. Like, because he's right. You can't, like, once you get moving, because then you get the donut on, then you have to go to the tire place, and then you got to drop money you didn't really want to drop that day. And it's the classic. A flat tire is the classic, like, thinking about some other shit, because this is what was going on that day. Like, I was thinking about some other shit and thinking about, I was already a little stressed out and having some other problems. And then a flat tire is just one of those things, man, that's like the fucking cherry on top. Like, the thing that didn't have to go wrong, the thing that you didn't foresee, the thing that just comes out of left field. I mean, car problems in general are like that. Goddamn, especially when you're broke. When you're broke, but, just not broke enough to own a car, and then something happens to your car, and especially because a lot of times, your car, without your car, especially if you're, it's a little different in major cities, but to most of us who live in suburbia and shit like that, without your car, you kind of can't get to work. It's a big problem to not have your car. If something goes wrong with it, all the money you planned to paying your rent, all your little budget you had going on, bam, something happens to your car, and it's just everything gets fucked up. So the car problems are generally the cherry on top when it comes to stressing you out. And there's something about this dude saying that I could start my day over at any time, because that's really something that you can use for anything. It doesn't have to be your day. It can be your life. Like, your day, you can just start over whenever you want. It can be your life. It can be your love life. It can be your year. It can be your music career. It can be anything. You can always start over. Doesn't matter. You can always just fucking scrap what you got and start over. There's no need to stress over it. Why cry over spilled milk can maybe even be used in that situation, I suppose. But that was some of my stories for this week. Let me get to some shout-outs and questions. All right. All right. Shout-outs for this week. Dwight G from Toronto, or known as the infamous rapper D Grease. That's funny. I know a dude who goes by D Greaser as his rap name. Miracle from Austria, whose EP is now online. That's http http:// or those backslashes or regular slashes. I don't know. I only know that they're backslashes because you hear people say it that way. Like, it looks like a forward slash to me. Like if it was to fall, it would fall forward. But who knows? Maybe if it was whatever the fuck. The Plan EP.bandcamp.com. That's THEPLANEP.bandcamp.com. I recommend that. He's got a video. Fuck, I can't remember off the top of my head what the name of the song for the video was, but that shit was dope. My man Miracle, who I've met a few times out there in Vienna, one of the fucking best places in the entire world that I've ever been. That's Miracle with a K, by the way, Mirakle. His music is dope, and even more importantly, he's a real cool dude. So go check that out. Shout out to Raul Justice, Bonnie L., Cody from San Francisco, who recommends the rapper A1. I've had a couple of people recommend A1, by the way. Francis S., CJR, Aaron the Violinist. What's up, Aaron? Will O., Fernando P., B. Willis, Nathan C. Speaking of Aaron the Violinist, who once did a podcast jingle. Shout out once again to Lucas from Ohio for the acoustic jingle that I once again played at the beginning of the show. Love that shit. Where am I at? Fernando P. B. Willis. What up, B. Willis? Nathan C. Pierre L. from Canada. Thomas, a.k.a. Steezy T. Spencer Scobie. Marco from Canada. TJL. John P. from Spotsylvania, Virginia, who loves Dale Firebird. I had a little email convo with John P. about Dale Firebird. Dale Firebird is actually one of my least successful things that I've done on YouTube. It's one of my favorite things to do and one of the least successful. And often I think with artists, fucking artists, man, like the shit that you really like to do isn't necessarily what people like respond to the most. And I think with Dale Firebird, it's just like, not everybody knows that character, the whole redneck. I've talked about this on the podcast before, but like the redneck character is lost on not most people, but a lot of people, because you kind of have to grow up with people like that to really understand it. Like if you just see it on TV, you just have like the wrong idea of what a redneck is. If you're from my area, what I like to use the example of is if you're from where I'm from, there's a lot of rednecks, and like what do they have? Out in Los Angeles, there's a lot of Mexicans, and there's a lot of cholos, for example. This is a good comparison would be understood. Like if you're from where I'm from, like the only thing you really know about cholos is what you've seen on TV and what you've like heard from fucking maybe rap music and just mostly movies and shit. And you can't necessarily really relate to the characters because you didn't grow up with those types of people. So people in LA often don't give a fuck about Dale Firebird, or just not really understand like the humanity behind Dale Firebird, if that makes sense. It's not just like this stereotype. There's real people behind these rednecks. You know what I'm saying? And in a lot of ways I'm a redneck myself, and I think a lot of us are at heart. We like, if you listen to country music lyrics, shit, there's a lot of things that I agree with what they say, like the simple things. Like there's that song by the Zac Brown Band where he's like, the first half of the chorus, he's talking about just a little chicken frying, cold beer on Friday night, pair of jeans that fit just right, and my radio. But in the second verse, he goes into some shit about like a mother's child, the love of a precious child. And he's talking about how just like the good things in life are the simple things, like drinking beer and eating chicken, and the love he has for his kids and shit. And for one, I can appreciate those things. If I go to a bar, in areas around my hometown, and you happen to run into one of those guys, and he might say some of that stuff, you can appreciate it. But then if he follows that up by calling Barack Obama the N-word, you might not be able to appreciate that so much. So just because somebody thinks one thing that you agree with, they might think something else that you heavily disagree with. I remember an experience I had where I was in a bar and people were fucking saying some crazy racist shit about Barack Obama, and I couldn't even fucking believe it. But Yeah, that's a redneck for you. I'm not saying I agree with everything that everybody says, and I'm not saying that all rednecks are racist, but, you know, even a clock, a broken clock's right twice a day? Yeah. Alphonse L. from Canada, Mondo from L.A., Maddie B. from Baltimore, Nathan C., and, of course, Joanna S. in Dublin. One of my favorite listeners, always making me smile. Let's see, what do I got? Okay, let's start with Hassan K, a.k.a. Saddam Insane. Keep in mind, this is a little bit, maybe a month old, but this is Saddam Insane, very frequent listener, frequent emailer, and he was the person who originally said that I would use the word Pacific instead of specific. So here he goes. What up, Mike? Been a while since I emailed, but just had to respond to that damn Spooby Raul S. for calling me out last week. Spooby is a reference to a T-Rex joke. I'm going to be having T-Rex on the podcast real soon, y'all. He was supposed to be on this week, but he'll probably be on next week for those people who have been asking for T-Rex to come back. First off, I'd like to publicly semi-apologize to you and the podcast listeners. Oh, yeah? I was so infuriated by Raul's challenge that I said fuck it and thought I'd finally go back and drown myself in your beautiful voice for a week. After listening to about 16 podcasts, I've had my ears are literally now full of wax. Insert punchline, drum roll, ba-dum-dum. I've had enough of your god-awful voice and given up. Just playing your voice is all right, but seriously, whilst on the quest to find the infamous wax Pacific instead of specific slip-up, I became deeply immersed in the pleasures of the podcast and forgot about the task at hand. After hours of listening, it is deeply saddening that I have to inform you and the podcast listeners that, in fact, I may have been wrong and you didn't actually say Pacific instead of specific. You don't know how good this makes me feel, Saddam Insane. I was sure at the time that you said it, and I may have just missed it this time around, but it looks like I may have just... Looks like I may have just trolled myself, as Raul S. put it. Alas, it wasn't a wasted 16 hours plus of my life. I noticed in one of your podcasts you mentioned a song called Scrub Life that you played to L.A. Reid when you met him at the Beverly Hills Hotel. The Scrub Life mixtape was one of my personal favorites out of your catalog, and I was wondering, have we heard that song under a different title, or is it still unreleased? I would love to hear it. In fact, it's unreleased. If in fact it's unreleased, and again, sorry to anyone who actually went back and tried to find the Pacific thing, that teaches you for not believing for everything that you hear, you damn spoobies. Anyway, thanks as always. Listening back to all those podcasts reminded me just how dope it is that you interact with us, your supporters, on such a personal level, and can't wait for more music and more podcasts. Stay safe, my friend. Your boy Hassan K, a.k.a. Saddam Insane. By the way, Lo-Fi Blow Dry is sounding tight, yo. Well, thank you very much, Hassan. Always good to hear from you. Hassan is somebody I've met several times. He's an English boy. That was terrible, but I've seen him in Philadelphia. I believe I saw him in London, but I definitely saw him in motherfucking Amsterdam. And, yeah, that's the homie. I've also seen that fool in Paris, man. Hassan K, man. Saddam Insane. He gets around. Good friend of the podcast, and just good friend in general, and also a good photographer, by the way. And he makes me feel good today by letting me know. Anybody that's been listening to the podcast for a long time know that I was a little bit upset because so he said that I said pacifically instead of specifically, and he said I said especially instead of especially, which I do. I do say especially, but I know that I don't say. Let me be Pacific about that. I know that I don't say that, so turns out I was right. And as far as that song you're talking about, Scrub Life, I never did put that song out. That's kind of funny that it ended up being the title of the mixtape, and the title of the track never got put out. Let me see if I can probably play a little bit of that for you here. Hold up. I'm trying to rock out on this one, man. Yeah. Big
wax, I'm not a successful rap star. I don't own a car, much less a fast car. The last bar that I drank and I came in with the glass jar full of change I've been saving. Bought a couple Pabst cans with pennies, and I still had enough for a slam at Denny's. It don't take much to please me, believe me, I'm easy. Don't come to my house if you wanna watch TV. There isn't one in there, but I don't fucking care. My floor's covered with beer bottles and underwear. Still I love it there, even though the cupboard's bare. Save for a couple spare forks and some Tupperware. A lot of y'all probably think that I'm dumb, but I'm a motherfucking scrub and I'm proud to be one. Man, I don't need the glitz and glamour, yo. I keep my spirits high by keeping my standards low. I don't mind it a bit that I don't ever have any, no. Y'all can all call me a S to the C to the R-U-B. I'll get by, I'm fine, I'll survive my life. I know I stay at home when it's club night, happily living the strong life. On your wife's wedding ring, you spent 100 thou, and she still left the club with me some fucking how. And she even paid the cab fare. There's no bed at my crib, she let me hit it on my old beanbag chair. She was a nice girl right before riding home. She had the courtesy to clean up all the styrofoam. I'm pimping on a low budget, the type of dude a lot of these Hollywood women won't fuck with. But that don't bother me because I keep it extra real. I'm only at the bar if it's some type of special deal. That's where I find my type of chica with the sex appeal. Chubby in the waist, but her face looks like Jessica Biel. That shit that 95% of the US can feel. Other 5 up in the hills eating expensive meals. I'm at the crib chillin', making rap songs. It's me and T-Bills grilling bacon rap dogs. I don't mind it a bit that I don't ever have any, no. Y'all can all call me a S to the C to the R-U-B. I'll get by, I'm fine, I'll survive my life. I know I stay at home when it's club night, happily living the scrub life. I ain't trying to diss, I'm just speaking for myself when I say there's no Louis Vuitton shit on my shelf. I don't brag about my luggage cause I'm way too scrubbish. I own a bunch of rubbish and I do a bunch of dumb-ish. My Las Vegas trip was real superb, sitting on the strip curb, sipping Steel Reserve. I looked up into the sky at the lights feeling high, and I thought to myself, man, I don't ever wanna die. I don't mind it a bit that I don't ever have any, no. Y'all can all call me a S to the C to the R-U-B. I'll get by, I'm fine, I'll survive my life. I know I stay at home when it's club night, happily living the scrub life. I ain't trying to wait in that long ass line anyway.
Yeah, so that's that, and that is that. And that was a rough mix of that song. I never really professionally got that mixed or even try to professionally mix it myself. But that was a rough mix. Sounds even a little corny to me right now, honestly. It's, keep in mind, it's like, I guess that album came out in 2011, so it's at least 3 years old. That song's probably almost 4 years old. And it sounds a little corny to me now. I'm kind of over that whole trying to be cool broke guy. I don't think I was trying to be that, but I think that was naturally where I was at that time, Man, you know what I mean? If you're an artist, you kind of just talk about, and you let your music reflect on where your life is at the time, And that's what I was doing at the time. And it does have a cool rock Ozzy kind of vibe to it. And I don't think I ever there might be a live version of that song on YouTube. I don't think I ever officially put that song out. So thanks to Saddam Insane, Hassan K, for asking about that. I don't really know what else to say about it. Interesting. All right. This is from Louis B. Hey, Wax, listening to your podcast with herbs. Fuck. Listening to your podcast with herbs. You mentioned doing ayahuasca, and I've been researching it a lot, and it seems interesting. By researching, I mean I watched a podcast. Well, your research is pretty much the same kind of research that I do. Although I did watch the DMT documentary, the Joe Rogan DMT documentary, and I'm sure that if we're discussing ayahuasca, the podcast, and I remember you sent me the email with a link to it. It was a Joe Rogan podcast. He's one of those dudes that is very into like psychedelic drugs, and he actually is the host of a whole documentary about the drug DMT, which I just find that shit fucking fascinating, man. Like, to me, like, the way that people talk about that, it seems like more than a drug. And, you know, I'm a believer in not doubting everything. You know, there's people that might think he's crazy. There's people that might think that doing ayahuasca, this natural thing that you find in a tree, and if you ingest it, supposedly, according to people, kind of takes you and shows you what God is and shows you where love comes from and shows you all these beings and shit like that. And some people might think that's crazy, but, you know, I think a virgin having God's baby is crazy as well. So what can you say? I think everybody's a little bit crazy. And I do think that there's merit in drugs. I think there's merit in drugs, especially the psychedelic drugs. And I don't judge people for participating in the experimentation of them or with them or whatever the fuck. If you ever have spare time, peep it. Do you think you would actually make a trip to the Amazon rainforest if you were to try it? Also, completely random, but what do you think of the Palmer Squares lyricism? I think they both have amazing talent, but I don't know shit about rapping, so I'm curious what you think. Let me start by saying I think the Palmer Squares are awesome. I love their shit, and I think that they just got a cool vibe. As far as ayahuasca, I don't know that I would make a trip to the rainforest to do that shit. Because to me that would freak me out. Even just to be down there would freak me out a little bit. You know, I'd be a little bit uncomfortable with my surroundings maybe, and I might not know where I'm at, or people might speak a different language than me. I know they have like weird kind of trips you can go on where you kind of like do ayahuasca with a shaman and shit like that. I don't want to do it that bad, and I don't think I'm that interested in it, but you know, if the shaman was here, if he was like, you know what, how about instead of the rainforest, we'd go to Malibu. I'd do it like the rich white guy way. Although, speaking of rich white guys, I've heard that that the famous musician Sting, who is a rich white guy, and you would think that he would being with his going with his rich whiteness, you think that he would do ayahuasca in Malibu. But maybe another aspect of being rich is you can kind of do whatever the fuck you want. And he wanted to go to the Amazon rainforest and do that shit with a shaman, and supposedly he's done that several times. Sting is avid. Sting is an avid drug, like, you know, psychedelic drug user who supposedly does a lot of crazy drugs, like him and his wife do fucking Molly together and shit like that. But I think one of his big things is ayahuasca, and I think several times he's been to the Amazon rainforest and done that shit with shamans and whatnot. So, you know, if it works for Sting, maybe that's where he got the name Sting. Maybe that's like, you know, when he got out of there, you know, there was some kind of naming. The shaman called him Sting. Who knows? But he's somebody that does that shit, supposedly. I don't think that I would make a trip to the Amazon rainforest to do ayahuasca, no, because I'd be too worried about something weird happening to me. All right. This next question, I remember getting this question. This is kind of a weird question, but read it anyway. Hey, this is from Rachel. Hey, Wax, big fan from New Zealand. Hold up, stop for 1 second. Hold up. All right, sorry about that. Let's get. This is Rachel. Big fan from New Zealand. My name's Rachel. I'm 16, and I'm a huge fan of everything you do. Your music, your videos, and podcasts. I try to rap along to all your songs when they come on my phone. I especially love New Crack because it's so fucking clever. Well, I appreciate all that you said, Rachel. That's awesome. Especially that you're so young and you're from New Zealand and you listen to all this stuff. That's great. My question for you is, would you be weirded out or grossed out if you were hooking up with a girl and she took her clothes off and she had self-harm scars on her body? I have self-harm scars on my stomach, legs, and hips, And I get worried that when I eventually do end up having sex with someone or they see me naked, that they'll be scared of the scars. Should I tell them about the scars before I get naked with them, or should I not worry? I don't actually want to have sex with anyone for a long time, but I still think about what I should do a lot. So yeah, would that put you off the girl, or would you really not care? Again, huge fan of all your work, and I don't mind if you read this out loud on the podcast. Since you said that, that's why I decided to do it, especially considering you're young, and I don't know if this is fucking illegal to even talk about this since you're a minor, but I'm just trying to help, and this is what I would say to you. If somebody cares about that, they will probably only care, unless they're just a fucking dick that, and a lot of men are. A lot of men just really, what a lot of men want, and that is sex. And some of them might even tell you anything in order to get in bed with you, but I think that ultimately, first of all, I'd be interested to see how crazy the scars look, because that's going to make a big difference. If your stomach and legs and hips, if it looks, I was about to make a Kunta Kinte reference, but since I said I was about to, I might as well have. But if it looks really bad, then that might be a little bit different than if there's a couple cuts there. But I think that you're ultimately best off telling somebody ahead of time, and maybe really not only telling somebody that you had the scars, but explaining to them why. You don't really explain in this letter why you have these self-harm scars, or I think more importantly, if that's something you still engage in, and do you still cut yourself? That's not something that I ever did. I've had some depression in my life, but I've never had that urge. That's kind of something that I never did. I never really got. That's not really something that I can understand too well. That being said, that makes me a perfect candidate to think about what I would say if I was the guy that was in the position you're talking about. I think that I would just ask you. I would just be honest with you and ask you, what made you do that. Do you still? And I just try to understand it with you. And, to be dead honest with you, like that's not going to stop most guys from having sex with you. If anything, some of them might even like it. But I don't know. I don't know. Like, I guess you got to ask yourself how you feel about them. I don't think that it's anything to be ashamed of. I think that you should just be honest and say that you had some issues, and that's what you did. I think anybody that you want to be with, especially if you're a virgin and you've never had sex with, the first person you had sex with should be somebody that you're able to be honest with. I really do believe that. I'm not just saying that to be nice to you. I really do believe that. I talked about losing my virginity on the podcast I guess it was 2 weeks ago, and I really am glad that it was with somebody that I at least we were cool and I cared about, and it wasn't just some strange one night stand thing that I just did to try to lose my virginity. I think it worked. It works. I think it's good to be with somebody you can be honest about and comfortable with, and then if there is a weird experience, it won't be so uncomfortable. Like when I mean, this isn't the same as you, but like I was uncomfortable in general. I was sweating my balls off, and it wasn't as bad because the girl that I was with, I wasn't worried about her judging me or anything like that. It was just we were able to be honest with each other, and I think that the first person you have sex with, you should be able to do that too. I think another interesting thing about that, if it's on your stomach, legs, and hips, like if you're ever to wear anything in the future, especially if you're a girl, that kind of puts you out of the category of wearing anything revealing, especially like a bikini or something like that. I'd be interested to see. Don't please 16-year-old girl, do not send me pictures of your stomach, legs, and hips. Please don't do that. But I would be interested to know how bad it is, or how if there's any potential for it healing later in your life. That's interesting. But I don't think it's something. I definitely don't see there being any point in worrying about it. You know what I mean? There's not really any point in worrying about it until you actually have that person that you might want to have sex with, and then in that case, I have a feeling that before you even have sex with them, they'll find out about the scars. You know what I mean? They might be doing a little something else. You know what I mean? And or even if you're just talking to them, and if you really get to know somebody and you get to the point where you're comfortable enough with somebody to let them have sex with you, I think that you'll probably already be comfortable enough to let them know about that. So that's what I got to say about that, Rachel. Thanks for the email, and thanks for listening to the podcast and the music. All right, this is from Harry14 from NYC. What's good, Mike? Your music is generally tolerable to terrible, and of course this is why I listen to your music and podcasts. Well, I appreciate that. Anyway, in some of your songs you talk about God, even though you have made it clear to us all that you are a strongly opinionated atheist. And by the way, I'm on your side. The first thing that comes to mind is New Crack, where you say, and the feeling in his wrist make you nod your fists, make you realize God exists. And then you go on to explain how splitting time up into such perfect increments is evidence for God's existence. I don't know if I'm missing something or just that this just hasn't been explained yet, but these questions need to be answered, Wax. This little contradiction has been making me think for a while, so I'm hoping your godliness can shed some light on the subject. P.S. I'm sure all podcast listeners are very proud of you for putting out a podcast on Wednesday for 2 consecutive weeks. Just thought that because your intros are often littered with apologies on how late you are with the podcast that you deserve credit where it is due. Have a great day and keep making music. Well, I appreciate that, Harry. That email was probably another email from about a month ago. So since then, I think I might have missed one. But I know that this podcast it should come out on a Wednesday. If not, it would be a Thursday morning. But it will be at least the 3rd consecutive week that I've put out one. So hey, But as far as the thing about God and New Crack. First of all, let's start with this. You say you made it clear that you're a strongly opinionated atheist. Now, going back to the verse specifically, I think that if you were to go back and listen to all my podcasts, I don't think there'd be a time where I ever called myself an atheist. I wouldn't call myself that. I'm what they call an agnostic, I think is what it is called. I believe it's called an agnostic, where if you ask me, I don't know. I don't know. This is my belief as far as God goes, summed up. I think I had to have said this on the podcast before, but it can be summed up like this. If you look at an anthill, an ant colony, and then imagine those ants discussing the most recent NAFTA free trade agreement that Barack Obama made with the fucking president of Mexico or whatever. Like, if you just think about that, think about the ability of those ants to have that knowledge. That's what I think is above us. I don't know if there's God or whatever, but I can tell you that I don't know, I'm not perfect. I'm not a politician. I can flip-flop. I don't know everything, but there's something that happens with music that makes everything change. My opinions change when you have that there's a feeling that you get when you listen to music, and a feeling you get especially in certain times when it hits you in the right way, that makes you know that there's some kind of other shit going on. And I think that maybe people feel that same feeling when they take ayahuasca and things like that. Or it's the same reason people believe in God, and they feel that in church, and there's some kind of like unexplained thing that maybe we think it's God. And maybe when I wrote those lyrics, I was kind of thinking it was God and describing it as God. But I really do think that there's something above us that makes it so we're able to split time into perfect increments like that. There's some kind of way that the world works in this perfect, synchronized, harmonious order. It's the same reason there's 365 days in a year, but that's divided up into seconds. So there's blah 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 seconds in a year. And who the fuck thought of that? I don't know, but there's some kind of way that we're able to just feel this division of time. And what I mean by that is when you have, let's say you have a beat plan that's 70 beats per minute, you're not like thinking like, okay, well I have to clap 70 times per minute. You can just feel that exact rhythm. And I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it comes from the fact that you have a heartbeat that's somewhat regular. You know what I mean? But at the time when I wrote that lyrics, those lyrics, I was just thinking about that, I guess, and that's the only way I can really explain it is there's something above us, something higher than us, that keeps everything moving in a specific pattern. I don't know how to explain it, but I definitely don't consider myself an atheist, man. I don't go by the whole there's a fucking dude in the clouds that looks down upon us and knows about everything we do, and he's just like us, and I definitely don't think that he's good. You know, I think if anything, I like to explain it another ant metaphor is like imagine if there was just a random kindergarten class and you made all of them take care of an ant farm, you know? It's just a random kindergarten class in Wichita, and you know Earth is one of those ant farms. Like why couldn't that be true? I mean, have you seen how small and big things get? You know, like if it's true that the Earth could be like, you know, if the universe is infinite, if you've ever been on a beach and looked at one grain of sand, you know, if that's Earth, I don't see why it couldn't. I mean, it's unexplainable, and we're too small to possibly imagine what's real and what's above us. But I reject the notion generally. I definitely reject the notion that any of the books explain it. That to me is all nonsense. I mean, you know, if you believe in it, that's fine. I'm not gonna fucking, you know, I'm not gonna judge you. I mean, I might kind of judge you. I'm not. Let's be honest here. I might kind of judge you for believing in these things wholeheartedly, but I think the reason that people do that is because you get to a certain point in your life and you're like, what the fuck? This is all absurd. This whole existence, there's no meaning in life. You know, that's my thing. You know, there was like what's his name? Camus. I think it was a French philosopher named Albert Camus. Hey, learning something. And his theory was absurdism, and just really whenever philosophers usually are trying to kind of figure out the meaning of life, and that's what religion is trying to really point to as well. And his main thing was there is no meaning of life. Essentially, you have to make your own meaning, but if you really try to think of a meaning, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like if you look at the world around you and the way we operate and what we're doing, like to find a real meaning in it is ridiculous. So I kind of go by that, which kind of makes me, you know, think it's a fun way to live your life if you think about it that way, because it'll make you do more ridiculous things maybe, and it makes you appreciate more ridiculous things. And I don't know. I don't deny the existence of quote unquote God, but I definitely don't. My point is I don't consider myself an atheist. I do think that there's some kind of shit going on with the fact that we can make rhythm like that, and there's a feeling that you get in music that I can't explain it, but there's like certain emotions when you play it and when you connect with people. I don't know if there's some kind of connection we all have on this earth, and I think ayahuasca even probably brings that to the table. You know, there's all these little weird feelings. I mean, you can get even like being in nature, you know, can give you weird feelings about God and the meaning of life and all that shit. So I don't know if I really answered anything through that, but all right, this is a pretty long email. How much time do I got here? I've been talking for a while now, but I told Trevor in Sacramento that I would read his email, so I will. Sup, Big Wax? I was just listening to podcast 53 where you gave advice to Edon or Enoch. Young Edon or Young Enoch. I don't remember who that was, but sorry, I forgot the name. But the Jewish kid from Israel, the guy that got all ranty about existentialism and religion. I just wanted to tell you that I know what you were going through. Brace yourself for an excessive backstory. I'm a bit younger than you. When the economy hit the toilet, when the economy hit the toilet, I had just gotten on with the state of California working in corrections, and my girlfriend at the time had just graduated college and gotten a good job in accounting. So we bought a house when they were cheap, and I moved in solo because my girlfriend had old school Mexican parents who didn't want her leaving the house until she was married. In that time, I started passing time watching Netflix. Not shows, mind you, because those I had to save to watch with the lady. So I started watching all the documentaries. All right, he wrote this at the time when I was watching all the documentaries, and probably a lot of the podcast shit had to do with how depressing everything is. Pretty much the ones that you mentioned watching. Now, I already knew the country was fucked and knew it was big business buying politicians due to a family that always used to sit around and debate politics after dinners. But those documentaries got me fucking depressed. Being able to already realize how apathetic and willfully ignorant our younger generations are when I started seeing just how bad it was made me realize that stuff is going to get bad. Hopefully after our lifetimes. I fucking couldn't agree with you more. But I'm mentally ready to abandon ship the moment I feel the iceberg touch the boat. And it makes me depressed because of the beauty that exists in how this country was created, but not in the abomination that it has become. I've dealt with the whole what's the point of life thing for a while. This actually led in well from the previous question. And while I'm certain that there is no God, as in some omnipotent dude picking Super Bowl winners... This dude is, it's weird how this came after the other one. I didn't plan this. I don't discount that we could have a creator or creators. They could be aliens. I know it gets the LOLs, but I find alien intervention in shaping life on this planet far more likely than the aforementioned old guy on a cloud. I must have got that from reading this or anything else. So I think I bit your theory, Trevor. But I agree. The alien thing is actually kind of goes along with what I said about the kids with the ant farm, you know? Maybe aliens are actually the size, like one alien life form is actually the size of 7 billion Earths, and the Earth to him is the size of a fucking a grain of sand or whatever. You know, you never know. Anyways, my philosophy on what the meaning of life is and why I'm here is to be a good person. You know, be someone that makes existence better for other people rather than worse. Not to be selfish and just try to be happy. And I will say that your music and the music of everyone I've found through you, DFD, Herbs, Intuition, Breezy, Jose Rios, EOM, all that great stuff that came through Knocksteady is a big part of my staying happy, and I thank you guys for that. I've always loved music and always wanted to make music, but unfortunately, other than a moderately good singing voice, I was not, quote, blessed with any abilities on that arena. Recommendation. Not sure exactly what to recommend because you're usually my recommendation to people, but if you haven't listened to their stuff, Slaughterhouse... They're some of the best lyricists in the traditional rap game. Don't get too depressed, man. And if you need to stop watching those gloom and doom documentaries, if you need to, stop watching them. And as far as the meaning of life, just know that through your music, you have made the lives of multiples of thousands of people better, and take comfort in that. Sorry for that long-ass boring email. Trevor in Sacramento. Yeah, I wanted to read that just because I guess that I kind of wanted to read that because as demonstrated by my answer to the previous question, I kind of feel a lot of the same ways about things that Trevor does. Don't believe in the old guy on a cloud thing. That's funny. Omnipotent dude picking Super Bowl winners. That's funny as shit. Because people think that. They're like, oh, it must be fucking, God must think, you know, they'll find anything to bring God into. And yeah, I think like I said about life being kind of fucking absurd. You know, music is one of the most absurd things there is. You know, and it doesn't make any sense necessarily, and it's totally subjective, and it's just beats and rhythms and whatever you want to do. But somehow it makes people happy, and that just, you know, when Trevor's saying that my stuff makes him happy, I take comfort in that as well, and that makes me want to make more of it. And like I said in the beginning of the podcast, or the middle of the podcast, whenever that was, I am making more of it, and I'm going to attempt to make even more and even more and even more of it. And hopefully it won't be boring. So, hey, that was Wax's podcast, episode 61. Kind of a longer episode, but hey, what can you do, you know? What can you fucking do? What was the thing I was thinking about? Yeah, cut to the chase. I want to make a skit where that's like the premise is just cut to the chase. Like it's like a fucking 1930s kind of gangster guy. He's always like, cut to the chase. but he just says it like all the time. Like he's like just buying something at 7-Eleven, and the 7-Eleven guy's bringing up, cut to the chase. What do I owe you? Cut to the chase. Why? Like it's just in little conversations. Like he's just always so impatient that he has to say cut to the chase. But let me cut to the chase real quick and tell you, be safe out there.